they're not getting enough sleep. They're burning the candle at both ends. And then they're still expected to, again, show up 100% at work, show up 100% at home. And it wears them down. And so they end up having burnout. They end up having stress. And then that, again, creates this vicious cycle of I'm not getting answers. I'm still feeling worse. What can I do?
And welcome back to Elevate with Yoana Nin. In today's episode, I have a very special guest, Dr. Michelle Drains, because a lot of you women, especially after a certain age, tend to just take care of the children, take care of your parents, do everything for everyone but yourselves. So in today's episode, Dr. Michelle is going to lead the way and talk to you about taking care of yourself because it's important and you want to be there for your children when they are going to get married. You want to be there for yourself when you're going to be 80. And not only do you want to be there for yourself, but you want to have a great life, quality life. So you got to be healthy. You got to be joyous and in a great mood. You got to dance. Welcome to the show, Dr. Michelle. I am honored you're here. And tell me a little bit about you, where you're from, and how did you end up doing what you're doing? You are a naturopathic physician and functional medicine physician. So I'm curious about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm here in Cary, North Carolina is where I'm based, but I'm from New York originally. I am a naturopathic physician and I specialize in functional medicine. And my big areas of focus are women's health and hormone balance, digestive issues, cardiometabolic issues, and autoimmune conditions, and a lot of the like allergies and a lot of the conditions that patients tend to go to doctor for, and they don't know what's going on. So I'm that investigator that finds that for them. And basically, in my practice, like how I got started was actually my family background is Quapaw in Cherokee, Native American. And I grew up around natural medicine and using around herbs and plants and using the natural things from our environment to help to get us better. And I loved working with plants. I loved gardening. And so as a young child, I knew I wanted to do something with plants, but I didn't know what I could do at that time. And so at first, when you are in kindergarten and they always ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said I wanted to be a farmer. Because back then it's like, what else could you do with plants? So that's what I initially set out to kind of do. And then that passion kind of gravitated towards an interest in botany and then later into an interest into pharmacognosy, which is actually the study of turning those plants into medications, which is a little bit on the opposite side of where I ended up. And then a family friend had given me a book on naturopathic medicine. I read through it. I thought this was the most awesome thing I've ever learned about. And I went back to her and I said, wait, so I can go to medical school, like actual medical school, and still be able to learn all the conventional things doctors learn, but still be able to help people with nutrition and herbs and lifestyle, all this alternative stuff. And she said, of course. And I said, well, that doesn't sound right. So I did I did all my own like investigation and research. And this was back way before Google. So you actually had to step into a library and look up things. And I looked out and I found a naturopath that I lived in New York at the time, that was practicing in our area. And I got to shadow her and kind of learn more about what she did. And then after that, I was hooked. That's what I wanted to do. So I knew as early as junior high, actually, that this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my life.
Wow, that's very, very cool. I love the fact you said you wanted to be a farmer. I guess even at this point when you see you talk about farmer, you think animals, but then you think nature, you think planting and growing plants. And I grew up in Romania, so it's interesting because I have very similar background as you do. But for me, I think when it comes to holistic and plants and I wasn't on a farm. I was in the middle of the city. but I've always been attracted to that. And like you said, deep in your heart that there's something that you're gonna do with you're gonna have not have to. You're going to put some of those passions as a child somewhere at some point in your future. But I just couldn't really I wasn't as dedicated as you. But even now, as a life coach, I do have a whole chapter for my clients that speaks about health, of course, not only hydration and I guess just the typical exercise that, I don't know how else to say it. It's widely known, especially in this country, but it's more focused on that naturopathic side of what is it that you really eat. And we are all unique as human beings. So what works for some women doesn't work for other women. And just to take one general medicine that everybody else takes, it's just not going to work for you. So I love the fact that you followed your heart and you went for it. And I think that the big difference in doctors, physicians, overall, even though a lot of people don't look at that when they choose a doctor, but for me, this story makes a huge difference. So out of someone that has a lot of accolades, maybe, which is great, right? And a lot of awards, when I talk to someone that says, I knew it since I was a child, and I looked at that, and I went to the library, and I researched, and I did this, I go, yeah, she's going to listen. She's going to understand that we're all unique, we're all different. She followed her passion. So I can only say kudos to you. I love that story. So may I ask you, so you finished school, right now you're based in Cary, because this channel is really focusing on empowering women. What do you see the biggest struggles are for women? Most of the women that you see, I mean, I know you said on hormones and allergies and immune system issues, but do you see certain issues that kind of just repeat themselves over and over, especially for women over 40?
Yeah. So especially in that, I see a lot of patients. A big bulk of my practice is women in that age range. And I see there's a couple of things that I see. It's hard to sometimes narrow down onto one. Is generally I see at this point, it's changes in energy levels. Again, hormone changes that will drive a lot of that. Issues with sleep and focus are usually the biggest struggles. And that will impact, again, their abilities to, be productive at work or spend time with their families. And that's the thing that's the real holdback to them. And generally I see that to be a biggest struggle. And a lot of the women that I work with, they tend to be, they're business owners or they're go-getters, they have to be on all the time. That's what they do. And this is one thing that holds them back. And so they have either been going from doctor to doctor and they find that they've had all their lab tests done and everything's normal, but they're still feeling like crud. They're still feeling really bad. They're not getting enough sleep. They're burning the candle at both ends. And then they're still expected to, again, show up 100% at work, show up 100% at home, and it wears them down. And so they end up having burnout. They end up having stress. And then that, again, creates this vicious cycle of I'm not getting answers. I'm still feeling worse. What can I do? Yeah.
And I'm happy that they end up in your office. Just to be very honest, I think a lot of them don't. They just follow the routine and they just go with what the doctor said. And I myself, some months ago, before I've met you, was there, done that, been there, and I said never again. Because again, I felt that I was just another number. I was just someone else that did their physical exam and here's you're fine. But then, for example, my testosterone was, 15, and I've had several other values that were just not where they were supposed to be. And unless I took things in my own hand, like I would have just been fine and I guess moved on the same way and feel like crap the same way over and over again. So the women that are in your office that go to a naturopath, a holistic doctor, I think are finally in a situation where they are taking, they are more empowered than most of the women. And so I hope that for all of you that are watching this episode, you're going to connect with Dr. Michelle. If you're not in the area, you can give her a call. Or, it doesn't really matter. You might be in New York, you might be in Los Angeles. The point is to take care of yourself, because as you heard her, we take care of everyone but ourselves. So then ultimately we will be depleted and not be able to do much if we're sick. The next question is, what are the 3 things that you love the most about yourself?
I love that question. And it's so sometimes hard to pull out because it's like we never like to talk about ourselves, I feel like. And so I think the first thing that I love about myself is being a good listener and being able to, being a good listener. So, and relator and resonator with the patients that the women that I work with. How many times have you gone into a doctor's office and you're lucky if you get 10 minutes and you feel like once they've gone, that's it. I've had all these questions that I need to answer and I'm still in a place where I feel like I'm not heard. And so when patients come into my office, a first visit is like an hour to an hour and a half of time. So I really love listening to their stories and really understanding their whys. Like, why is this happening? What are we needing to do to get to the root of this? Because I want to understand where you are, where you've been, where you are right now, so I know exactly where I need to take you. And so I really incorporate all that time of me really understanding more about their stories and listening to how I can help and how we can get them to that next step. So definitely being a great listener and being able to really understand and have a good relationship with the women that I work with. I also love being able to, for myself, I love being able to relate to people from different stages of life, different backgrounds, different languages, different cultures. I've always been someone who's loved to learn about something different outside of what I'm used to. And usually when I'm connecting with women or connecting with people in general, there's always something I feel like I can relate to, something that we can always have in common because of that background. And so that would be, I guess, the second thing that I would enjoy about myself is being able to relate with people from, all different stages and works of life. And something else I love about myself is persistence, even though sometimes it can be quite arduous and stressfulness. And being a practice owner, and I've been in practice for about, this month will be 10 years. Actually, it'll be 10 years now, for nearly a decade. And, there have been ups and downs and times where I thought it wasn't going to work or, why did I even get into this field in the first place? And just having that persistence and just going for it. And listening listening to my connections, to my peers, to my friends, and also being someone who I'm constantly motivated by knowledge. So I'm always looking to improve myself, because then improve myself professionally, with continued education, learning the newest techniques, keeping up to date on research, but also, personally, personal growth. Because again, I need to be able to show up 100% or 110% actually in my office so that my patients can show up 100% in their health. Yep.
Great. So you are motivated by knowledge. You're you love personal self-growth. And again, it really goes back, that resilience that you were talking about, that really goes back to your passion, because you're right. A lot of times, especially for women like us, entrepreneurs that own their own businesses, it's not always nice and pink. It's not like you go to work, you have a salary, you go home and you sleep well, and then you go back again. It's a completely different animal. You have to run your practice. You need to understand where you are on so many levels. And then you have to perform, like you said, 110%. Because if you're my doctor and I go there for an hour and a half and I want you to listen to me, I want you to be able to pay attention to all the small details because I'm just myself. And so if you're not there, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, and if you're not knowledgeable, then guess what? Why am I even going there? So I love that. I don't know if you've ever been to Romania, but you are more than welcome to go and visit my country. I'm from Transylvania, and whenever I go, I I'm still, even at this point, I'm fascinated by all of the pharmacies with all of the naturopath pharmacies. Almost every corner has a regular pharmacy and then a naturopath pharmacy with creams with propolis, with ashwagandha, all sorts of drinks with aloe and just unique extracts, right? Cold pressed extract. Yeah, and it's so cool. And so to me, you're speaking my language, and I really, really like the fact that you are on this planet, that you exist on planet Earth. I love these conversations. Next question: what makes you happy every day?
What makes me happy every day, I'd have to say two things. Going in to practice and working with women one-on-one. I love what fuels me when I'm working with patients is I call them light bulb moments. And it sounds funny, but you'll get it soon. It's when I'm talking to patients and there's information that as providers, as physicians, we might think, oh, everyone knows this, it's simple. Like for instance, vitamin D is a hormone. It helps with a lot of different things. But when I'm connecting with patients and talking with them about their stories or educating them on something new, and like you see the antenna pop up, like, oh wow, I didn't really, or I was working with a patient recently, and she had some really bad fatigue issues, and we did for like she's been dealing with them for about 6 years now, and finally came to me, and very bad fatigue, focus issues, digestive issues, and name it. And we did, I did a really good intake on her, and we were thinking nutritional deficiencies. We found some, and then we looked a little deeper, and it turned out she had a gene dysfunction that hindered her ability to convert into those vitamins. And so we had her on a good plan to help to kind of address that. And it was just this one simple thing when we kind of went through this whole thing. Says, well, this whole time it was just, I just needed this one thing to correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it the aha moment.
Yeah. Aha moments. Yes. Label moments. Yes.
It could be sometimes I'm extremely expressive. So sometimes like, whoa, right? And especially since I'm passionate about what you're passionate about, I think me and you could speak for 10 hours. Like learning and learning and learning. And especially when, if I'm the patient, I don't feel well, it's so humbling and it's so mind-blowingly beautiful to find someone that, like you said, you listen, you pay attention. So I strongly recommend to all of you girls to go, because like you said, like vitamin D or anything, you could have celiac disease. Or I have a question now. I know I'm going to go a little bit around my questions, but and it's just a very personal question, more from my knowledge. When it comes to sensitivities to certain things versus allergies to certain things, how do you determine that, right? Because everyone does all this allergy testing, right? Either like skin or blood. But what if, for example, I'm not allergic to gluten? I'm not allergic to milk, to lactose, but I am sensitive. How do you go about that?
Sure, yeah. So when it comes to allergies versus sensitivities, allergies are going to be more more overt. So it's like when we think about peanuts, and then like you're allergic to something very quick because you'll have that acute reaction, and so it's easy to figure that out. Traditionally, you can do a blood or a skin test with an allergist or your primary care, and you can figure out all the things that you're allergic to. But sensitivities are going to be more subtle, and those are the ones that a lot of people have and they don't realize it at all. And so there are different ways to determine that. So one classical way that you could do is you would take out, we would work together and we would take out certain suspecting food things that we may suspect, whether it's dairy or gluten or sugar or soy, things like that, and remove all that from the diet. And then work on healing up the gut, and then start putting these foods back in and seeing if there are any sensitivities. We might put one type of food in, and then wait a few days, see how you feel, and put it back in and see if monitor the reaction. So that's a classical way to do that. It works very well, but as you can imagine, it can be very time consuming, especially when you have someone who may have a long list of foods that or additives or things that they may be sensitive to. Another technique is food sensitivity testing, or what we call IgD testing. And, based off of, blood work, I can run a panel of up to 350 different foods, additives, even certain herbs. Even though herbs are natural, some people can be sensitive to them too, molds and things like that. And that can let me know instantly, what foods or what substances they have sensitivities to. And that gives me more of a green light. And that can, we can know, again, remove those foods out, work on healing up the gut, and then kind of putting them back in. And a lot of times in practice, I'll use a combination of both for the best results based off of who's coming to see me. Yeah.
Got it. I just wanted to know, I'm curious, because I personally think that there are things that I'm sensitive to, and I've never done any testing. I don't have any specific reactions, but it's obvious after I eat certain breads. It's I just don't feel quite as good, and it just pretty much I feel like I'm more tired. Nothing major, I can handle it, but I can feel it, I can sense it if I eat more for a specific occasion. So just wanted to check and get your opinion on that.
They're usually subtle ones. So someone may have issues with their, like you said, like the energy issues or just digestive issues, just kind of feeling off after eating certain foods. So it's going to be more subtle versus your hives or your anaphylaxis. Yeah.
Yeah. How would you describe your previous year in one or maybe two sentences?
I'd probably say it was quite the whirlwind. So I had probably about a year and a half, I kind of switched up how I did things in the practice and went in a different direction. So previous to that, I worked with a provider in a combination practice. And eventually I, made the decision to go back on my own, in my own practice. And I'm trying to think as far as struggles with that, initially going back to when I first started practice here in North Carolina, it's kind of, limiting for naturopathic physicians here as to how we're able to practice. And then after 5 or 6 years of practicing in North Carolina, I had decided to move to Oregon, where I work as primary care out there. And that was a very eye-opening experience. I learned a lot, and it made me appreciate, even though I was very limited in how I can help patients here, it made me appreciate the kind of the freedom that I had here as well. Again, in Oregon, it was the insurance paradigm, which again, we try to do things as natural as possible, but we're very limited as to that we still have to there are things, still I had to prescribe, and there are things that we still had to carry out, and things that were still limiting because of that. And you saw patients that were thriving because of that, but also patients that it took a little bit longer for them to get the results that they wanted. And so I came back here a few years after that, just to be closer to my family. And I joined a practice, and just everything that had led up to that, things have just been after that pointing to, you need to really go back and do the things the way that you do them, the practice the way that you love to practice. And so I did that about I stepped back into that a year and a half ago, entered the virtual space. So that was a kind of like a semi-new venture as to dealing with, clients virtually versus being in person. But then, being in that space, I learned we can do basically anything we can do sitting right physically in front of us. And there was, growing pains and challenges with that initially. But I found that the patient base that I worked with, they're constantly on the go anyway. They like to have a provider that was where they need it to be, where they were when they need to be. So, if they're traveling, if they're on vacation, if they're, can't physically come into the office, we can do anything virtual that's available to them, which is pretty much freeing. So again, I can be wherever I need to be, so I can help them. yeah. And so there were struggles and growing pains associated with that process. But, I kind of just made the decision to make that shift. And it's been the best thing for me so far.
Yeah, there's no bad decisions. There's just lessons, right? That you learn, and you had to see Oregon, I guess, visit the state, and then come back to what you're meant to do. Another quick random question. Um, do you have what is that line called? You know, that like the physician, like the normal physician has like an emergency line or anything like that?
So they are able to get in touch with me pretty quickly if they need it. Because of how I practice here in North Carolina, I don't function as a primary care doc. So, if there is an emergency, they have to see their primary care or go to urgent care if they need that, just because I'm not able to function in that capacity. But they can get in touch with me pretty quickly to keep me updated. So that way, if they do have an emergency or anything like that, I'm aware of what's going on and we could help to support them, while they're getting their care and then definitely afterwards. But yeah, they do have ways where they can get in touch with me pretty quickly.
Yeah. To be very honest, if it was up to me, I wouldn't necessarily need a primary care physician. I would just need you.
And that's the thing. When I was practicing in Oregon, I was a primary care doctor, so we could do anything your ND or MD or DO would. We just didn't have hospital privileges out there, which I didn't matter. Didn't need that. But it was kind of very wonderful to see how they've kind of merged that conventional sense to naturopathic. And if you spoke to most of the patients out there, they prefer to have a naturopathic doctor as their primary care, because we're not going to, initially we're going to try to do as least harm as possible. That's what everybody should be doing anyway. But we're trying to look at things that are going to be safe, natural, and effective. And we want to do therapies and techniques that work with the body and not against it. So we're going to try to do a lot when it comes to nutrition, lifestyle, herbal medicine, all these things that are going to be more natural before we have to resort to medication. And if we do need to use medication, and, we have that we can have that, in that setting, we had that conversation with those patients and we know how to combine them both together. And so, that's one thing I always tell patients is, it's about combining both together. So even if someone does have to be on medication, there's natural things that we can do to help mitigate things from that. So it's about incorporating that into your medical process, into your medical wellness team. Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody is against evolution in medicine. So we support, even the big pharma to a certain extent, because even me as a mom, yes, sometimes I do say, okay, we need a Tylenol. We might need a Tylenol. I do have my potion with turmeric and turmeric root. I add cayenne pepper. I add ginger root. I add pineapple. Then I boil a little bit of water with black pepper, so it would activate all of these ingredients. I put manuka honey for the kids. So I have this, believe it or not, all the time in my refrigerator in case, for the immune system. Of course, I keep it for, and I just that's my shot. I go and I just grab a shot of ginger and turmeric and cayenne pepper and all that. But sometimes it happens that as a mom, my kids have high fever. So yes, here's a little bit of Tylenol. You're feeling miserable. I may, feel miserable at that time, and I just want them to get better faster, even though I'm not treating the root cause of the problem. I know, but yeah, I think overall, I've never been to a doctor, a general physician, that would say to me, "Hey, I think you could just have some zinc, or, give your child some vitamin C or something like that." But it's always been backwards. Any naturopath or holistic doctor would say, we're going to give you this, and you can support your body through what I'm giving you and also use medicine, just like you said. So I feel like there's a lot of openness from you and physicians like you, to be honest, rather than from the normal physician that would just say, here, take this, here's your prescription, go to the pharmacy. So appreciate that, Dr. Michelle. Do you think many women that are overachievers fear success? And also, what does success mean to you?
I think we do sometimes. I mean, as far as fearing success and what comes along with it. So that's something that we all kind of drive for, and what success looks like, it's going to be different from person to person. But when it comes to fearing success, I think we fear what comes with it. So if I'm super successful or I'm where I want to be, what kind of, am I going to be stressed out? Is that going to lead to more anxiety? Am I going to have issues with my sleep? Does that mean that it's going to make my life worse? I'm where I want to be, but health-wise and mentally, it's a drain. It's going to be a drain on me because you have to maintain that. You're there and you have to maintain it. And I think, and again, that's when it strives to burnout. And again, comes all back to self-care. And, what success looks like is going to be different for everybody, but I think overall success should be, what it looks like would be, achieving where you want to be, whether or not that's in business, that's with family, that's with, hobbies and things that you enjoy. You want to be successful means, having happiness and joy in those things that you do. And, that happiness and joy, not having it come at a cost of your health from that. And, it's a balancing between your happiness, your vitality of your, of your body, and then the self-care. It's all balancing those things is what I think successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of people just think of success as in what have you achieved financially, which is very far from the truth, because we all know a lot of people that make a lot of money that have health issues, that are burned out, stressed out. They don't really enjoy lives on a day-to-day basis. And to end this this conversation, do you have a favorite quote? Anything that you really feel that really goes to your heart that you could share with us?
Favorite quote? I do have one, and it puzzles me as to who it is, but it's one that I kind of have integrated into my practice. And I believe that we can all be successful in our life's work, and we have our health available to us at a moment's notice. And with that, that means successful in our life's work. That can be, again, that could be anything. That could be in our business, in our work. That could be, being able to spend time with our children, with our families, our significant others, and if we don't have our health available to us, that's going to hinder our ability to be able to do those things.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, thank you for having me.
To all of you watching, please subscribe and please comment. This channel is a baby channel, and I'm also a baby in doing this. But as you see, I just have a few questions, but nothing is scripted. And everything that we share here with all of you that are watching and will be listening on the podcast really comes from a decision of mine that I took many, many years ago to really empower other women through just regular day-to-day real conversations. And we don't have to be stars. We don't have to be Oprah or anyone else to do this. We're all unique and beautiful the way we are. And so if you are watching, if you are listening, share, comment, let us know what type of questions you have. If you are in a moment when you struggle with your health, mental health, your physical health, Dr. Michelle is here. She can answer any of your questions. I will add all of her information in the comments, in the description below. So feel free to reach out to her. And just to make sure, Dr. Michelle, like you said, you can talk to anyone regardless of where they are, right? They could be in Europe. They could be anywhere in the world.
Yep.
Yeah. And, if there's blood work that needs to be done or anything that needs to be addressed, you can consult with Dr. Michelle and make sure that you are walking in this life in health and joy, and you enjoy every single day. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you and your time. You're beautiful, and I love you, and I'm grateful for you giving me your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure and an absolute delight.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone. Take care. Have a beautiful day.